Hello my dear students, welcome you all in today's video session. Children, do you all like to listen the adventure stories? Yes. So today I am going to explain you the new chapter, that is chapter number 13, The Adventure of Gulliver. Gullivers Travels is an interesting book written by a well known English writer, Jonathan Swift, in which he describes the voyages of Gulliver to various lands like Lilliput and Brobdingnag. Students, voyages means long journey especially done by ship. Though the character of Gulliver and these strange sounding lands are imaginary, means they are not in real life. Gulliver's experiences and adventures are written so well that they seem real and true to life. Gulliver, the story tells us, worked as a surgeon on ship. Surgeon means a doctor who is especially trained for medical operation. As such, he made several voyages. In May 1699, he sailed on the ship, that is, the Antelope. The ship name is the Antelope. On the return journey in November, a violent storm sank his ship and Gulliver swam to save his life. Late in the evening, he found himself marooned. Marooned means lying down on a strange land, weak and exhausted. That is, exhausted means very tired. He slept for about 9 hours. It was daylight when he awoke. So, let us read what happened next in his own words. Gulliver meets the Lilliputians. He tells his own story in his own words. He tells that I tried to get up from the ground, but I could not move. I was lying on my back. Then I found that my arms and feet were held down to the ground with strings. He tells that he was tied on with the strings. Okay, and my hairs, which was long, was held down in the same way. His hairs were also tied with the strings, and thousands of strings had been passed across my body so that I could not move any part of me but could only lie there on my back looking up at the sky. In a little time, I felt something alive moving on my foot. Then it came over my body and up to my face. Turning my eyes down as much as I could, I saw a man. He was not half a foot high. By his dress, he seemed to be a soldier. Then there came 40 more, following the first. Now here Gulliver felt that something was moving on his feet. Then he felt something moving up to his face. He saw a little man. He was not half a foot high, and he seemed to be a soldier. And then there came more 40 little men, following the first. I was so much surprised that I gave a great cry. Great cry means he shouted loudly by seeing that little men. Then they all ran back in great fear, and as I was told later, he heard later that some of them were hurt in jumping down from his side onto the ground. Gulliver attempts to pull free. Now here he says that after pulling very hard, I got one arm up from the ground. I also raised my head. This gave me great pain, for many of the hairs were pulled out. I put out my hand to catch some of the little men, but they ran away before I could close my hand on them. Then I heard a noise and felt a pricking in my hand like that of 1,000 needles. I found that they were shooting arrows at me. I was afraid for my eyes. I put my hand over my face. Now he heard a noise and felt that something was pricking in his hand, means like a thousands of sharp needles, and he found that the little men were shooting arrows on him. He was afraid for his eyes and he put his hand over his face. After this, I thought that the wisest thing to do was to lie quiet till night. I thought that then, my hand being free, I could quickly set free for the rest of my body. Soon a platform was raised and an important looking man gave a long speech from his gesture. Gesture means action. I guessed that he was trying to tell me that they would not harm me if I did as they told. I too replied with gesture that I would remain quiet. I also told them that I was hungry. Now Gulliver was so hungry that he eats a giant meal. Now he says that at once 100 men climbed up on to my body and marched up to my mouth carrying food. The bread was as small as bullet. He says that the bread was small like a bullet's. So I ate 2 or 3 loaves at a time, and cries of surprise rose from the Lilliputians. The Lilliputians were shouting with surprise that I should eat so quickly and so much. The Lilliputians were no longer afraid of me. They danced upon my body and ran to and fro. They were dancing on his body. I could have caught at least 40 of them with my hands and thrown them down. But I remembered my promise to remain quiet. Indeed, I was surprised at their bravery, for I must have seemed the greatest giant in the world. He was the only one who was greatest in that world. Later, I was taken to the city where the king lived. A great cart was made by joining many carts. 900 men worked for 3 hours. 900 men were worked to make that carts, to put me onto the cart, which was drawn by 1500 of the king's finest horses. The king's best horses were carrying that cart. The city was just half a mile away, but the journey took almost a full day. Gulliver's new home. The king came out to meet me. He came near and looked at me, but it was not thought safe for him to climb upon on me. So, when Gulliver reached to the city, that time the king came to meet him and to see him. Gulliver says that at the place where the cart stopped, there was an old church. It was the largest building in the whole country. For certain reasons, it had not been used as a church for many years. It had now been made ready for me to use as my house. The great door on the north was 4 feet high and 2 feet wide, so I could go into it by going down on my hand. One of my feet was set in a great ring on the end of many strong strings, so that I could not get away, but could only walk some distance outside my door. The country outside looked like a garden. After some days, the king and his people were convinced that I would not harm them. So, after I agreed to keep certain orders of the king, I was allowed to move around. So, what happened here? After some days, the king and his people believed that he would not harm anybody and they trusted him. So, some king's order were given to the Gulliver and he was set free and they allowed him to move around. Gulliver visits the city and the queen. As soon as I was set free, I asked if I might see the city. The king was pleased to let me do this. Orders were given to all the people to remain in their houses. I then stepped over the wall and went very carefully along the two largest streets. All the windows were full of faces looking out at me and large number of people were standing on the tops of the houses. The king's house was just at the place where two great streets met. There was a beautiful garden on all sides of it. Lying down in the garden, I put my eye to the windows. The rooms inside were very beautiful. In one room, I saw the queen and some of the young princes. They were greatly pleased by my visit. Now, here it means that Gulliver was allowed to move in the city, but there was one condition that the people were told to remain in their houses. Guess why it was told like that? Yes, because people were so small and they should not be hurt when Gulliver is moving around. He is a big giant and they are very tiny. He should not step on them. So the people were told to remain in their houses. Now Gulliver has become celebrity in that city. So when he was out to move in the city, everybody wanted to see him. So they came in their windows, doors and they watched him. Students, did you all enjoy the story? Yes. So hope you all understood this interesting story of Gulliver. So read it once again. Thank you for watching. Keep learning and have a nice day.